This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Guys, you know it's more refreshing and cooler than that ice-cold beer while you sit there and mow the lawn? Definitely not you if you're running around in this heat, in that office, wearing that stuffy, smelly, pit-stained dress shirt that's wrinkled to the high heavens. Don't worry now. Uncle Jock's got you covered, or should I say Larry Hunt's got you covered, with their moisture-wicking, anti-odor, breathable 4-way stretch 100% cotton dress shirt that will keep you cool like the other side of the pillow. Look, guys, I've been wearing mine for some time now, and I absolutely love them. They keep me cool, dry, fresh-looking all day long, so I can handle some business during the day and then head out and tear up the night while still looking fresh and clean. On top of it, this is probably the best part. The shirt is made, designed, and crafted by Detroiters in Detroit. See all the incredible styles Lawrence Hunt has to offer? Head over to lawrencehuntfashion.com. That's lawrencehuntfashion.com. And if you use promo code DSP, guess what? We'll save you 20% off your order. That's right, 20%. If you don't believe me, listen to Detroit Tigers catcher James McCann.
I'm a jeans and boots kind of guy, and taking my wife out to eat, I love putting on my Lawrence Hunt dress shirt. The way they stretch, the way they feel, they move with my body just like a t-shirt would. I know that I'm wearing a dress shirt, but it really doesn't feel like it.
That's lawrencehuntfashion.com.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Doc and Jock, episode 160, now available for download on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Your weekly dose of Detroit sports content, available via any platform that podcasts are available. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my co-host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
You know, football season is just around the corner. When this show is just bursting at the seams with coverage of your Detroit Lions, your Michigan State Spartans, your Michigan Wolverines, and we'll sprinkle in some Tigers too. But that's how you know football season is right around the corner.
It was kind of funny when we were prepping for episode 160. We were like, let's just jam-pack it. Let's talk football. And so hopefully on this very episode...
Really, it was like this. Let's put a show together and then let's scrap that because we've got all kinds of people coming in.
It was great because sometimes what we do is we can, take you behind the scenes a little bit, is we email multiple people throughout the week and say, hey, are you interested in chatting with us? And when you have multiple people say yes all at the same time, it was great because, sometimes people are busy. Their schedules get all out of whack because we're recording in the mid-afternoon on a Wednesday. But this week, we're hoping on these phone lines to chat with Rico Beard, 92.1 FM. He's starting up a new Michigan State radio program starting next week. He'll be on here talking about Michigan State. I know you and him might have a little bit of a chat, being that you're a pro Wolverine. And
we'll just go back and forth a little bit, I think.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
Keep it classy, Adam.
Well, it'll be friendly.
Okay, and then...
Rico's a good guy. Come on now.
And then Big Ten Network, Dave Revsine is going to be joining us, hopefully, to talk about Michigan football, to talk about some of the season predictions. I've watched both the Big Ten East and Big Ten West season prediction shows on the Big Ten Network, and they've been around now for 9 years, and they've been celebrating their anniversary. And so to get a chance to talk to one of the lead studio hosts, Dave Revsine, picked up the phone, and hopefully we get a chance to break down some college football with a Big Ten analyst.
Do you remember when the Big Ten first came out? Do you remember that very first season? It was basically 10 minutes of show, and then it was like 5 minutes of like Hormel chili commercials and like cheese commercials, or was it Rotella or whatever, cheese commercials? And then it was like another 7 minutes of show, and then it was like those same 4 commercials. BTN's come a long way. They've got some very good shows and some very good programming now.
Perfect segue, because speaking of coming a long way, we talked about it last night, and there's a lot of buzz in the radio industry. When the radio ratings came out this last month, a huge development occurred. 105.1 and hip-hop is number 1 in the market with an 8 share, basically going from a 0.8 to a 3 their first month in limited release, but their first official month in the ratings, they get an 8 share. And when that number came out, Jason was shocked, I was shocked, you were shocked. Did you think that Metro Detroiters love hip-hop that much? Number 1 in the market. hip hop.
It did surprise me because it unseated 97.1. And 97.1 has basically been the king of the Detroit market for years now. So this may be a blip on the radar. There may be some staying power. It's going to be interesting to see how this kind of goes along here as the months continue. But it doesn't really shock me because as we were kind of discussing last night, anytime you pull up at a stop sign, you pull up at a stoplight, if you have your windows rolled down, you will hear somebody playing that radio station. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And honestly, it's just like having Pandora with limited commercials and just putting it on like 90s R&B. Everybody loves 90s R&B. I don't care who you are. You could be the whitest white guy from all of suburbia. You love 90s R&B. It's just the way it is, man. It's that music that just kind of crosses over and can kind of bridge gaps. I mean, shoot, look, Justin Timberlake started doing it, and black community accepted him. The white community accepts him. It's just, you know what I'm saying? It's the way it is, bro. That's good music. There you go. That's right.
Doc and Jock, Detroit hip hop.
Can't believe it was a good day, man. Some Ice Cube, huh?
Well, all you can say, Detroit, is that you're listening. They know, and a lot of people, and what you get a sense is that, hey, word of mouth is very important in the industry, and a lot of people have said, hey, 105.1 is playing classic hip hop. Turn it on, and let's see where this goes. Do you think they'll sustain it? You think they'll be in the 6s and 7s probably the rest of the way? Because, hey, if you add content, you do it right, you have promotions, and you run the radio station, hey, you could be looking at a powerhouse radio station right from the very beginning.
I want to see what happens for another month. Again, like you said, very limited release for the first one where they pulled the 3. They now pulled an 8 share, and I kind of want to see if there is some dwindling, if it kind of tails off a little bit. I think they're going to be a power. I think they're going to sit there and pull at least a 5 share because they do play good music. They do play things that people want to hear and that people listen to. When you have a barbecue, they're the kind of station that you could just put on and not worry about sucking up any of your data. It's great.
Okay, DJ King, if you're listening, I'm definitely a fan also of gangster rap too. So they got to mix that in there. I know old school, but I don't know if they can combine it and make it something where you can add a little bit because did you know back in the day, I was a well-known professional rapper?
Oh, God. Are you serious?
You ready? Here we go. This is what a young 14-year-old does to his elderly parents when they're like, be a good boy, have morals.
Do you have a tape of this?
Oh, no, I don't have a tape. I have I would buy mixtapes for like $4 or $5 of Eazy-E, NWA. Oh. And so my parents are like, John, how was your math class? And I'd be like, easily I approach the microphone because I ain't no joke. Tell your mama to get off of my beep.
Oh, no.
They'd be like, what?
Easily I approach the microphone because I ain't no joke. Tell your mama to get off of my tip. I have no time to give her my dick. I'm gonna hold it.
And I'd be like, I like this kind of stuff. It's very entertaining. So I was impressionable. I liked the music.
As a 14-year-old, you're like, I like this kind of stuff. It's very entertaining.
My parents were like, you should respect Ronald Reagan. You should respect senators. And I'm like, sure, I like Eazy-E. They're cool. When you're a 14-year-old, Eazy-E will definitely get in your brain and warp your mind. So blame hip hop for whatever you see here behind this microphone.
Oh man, that's funny. You know what? Like speaking of like old school hip hop, I loved Warren G. Mm-hmm. I loved a ton of West Coast rap. I thought it was great, man. I don't know. It was that time too. I mean, this goes back to the whole East Coast West Coast thing. There was just everybody seemed to hate each other, and it honestly it felt like it was going to reach a boiling point. And then next thing you know, Tupac gets shot and gets killed. Me and my sister reminisce about that day because she was sitting in her bedroom watching TV, sitting on the floor. And it came across MTV that he had passed away because he had been in the hospital for a couple days there. So it was a pretty sad day, man. It was pretty brutal. One of my all-time favorite rappers, though, I'm going to put it out there, Nas. The guy's lyrically a savage.
Well, big now that you're on Snapchat, I don't know if you follow DJ Khaled. Him and Nas have been doing some collaborative efforts, so things are coming down the pike.
I don't know about that.
No?
I'm not a huge fan of...
DJ?
Yeah.
Mr. Self-Promotion on Snapchat?
I'm not a huge fan of him.
No?
No.
Okay, maybe we'll get into that a little bit
later. You know
what?
He's got a couple good songs that are catchy, but no. Anytime that you sit there and you get on the track and all you do is scream your name the entire time, I'm just like, okay, next. Please, next. I can't handle it. Well, dude, I like Nas, man. The guy is like so lyrical, it's retarded. You got to listen to a song sometimes 2-3 times to sit there and just capture the point that he was trying to just embed in your brain. It's great. Like a pool, man. It needs something deep.
Well, the Lions, unfortunately, didn't perform the way that we all thought.
Oh, what a difference 2 weeks makes, huh?
My goodness.
Jeez Louise.
How much into
What
that
a dumpster fire.
How much into that third preseason game did you get into?
I think I watched until the start of the fourth, and I can't handle it anymore. I found something else to do, and dude, it was absolutely brutal. It was hard to watch that game. It gave you nothing. Gave you absolutely nothing. You have receivers who are trying to make this team and are trying to stake a claim that they are going to sit there and help this team win games, dropping balls. You've got running backs not doing a very good job. You've got offensive linemen looking like they're freaking a doorway with no door in it. Just go ahead. Go right on through. I mean, honestly, Matt Stafford's going to have David Carr syndrome by the end of the season, I feel. He's going to be a shell of what he used to be because he's going to be terrified because he's going to have linebackers breathing down his neck every single game. The defensive line, we talked about it. Defense is the strength of this team. Defensive line didn't show me anything. The secondary and the linebackers with DeAndre Levy out there didn't really show me anything. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And, I know it's preseason, but it's the dress rehearsal. Basically, the Lions put their uniforms on and then messed up their dress rehearsal. Just pooped and peed all over themselves. And that's what I got.
Yeah, it was tough to watch, man. And then you had that juxtaposed with the story that was emerging from the Tigers game where every couple of innings there were guys getting ejected. So I watched the first half and I looked to see if Rudock was going to start the second half. And after that, I kind of tuned it out. It was a tough watch, but I'm trying my best to really absorb what people are saying that, hey, it's just a preseason. It is not indicative of what they're really going to do in the regular season. And so I'm really going to try to just erase it from my memory and really go with the attitude of, hey, if more of the impact players can walk away healthy, if they can implement what they need to do on offense and defense, and they can put together the best 53-man roster, which I think they're doing. I like the cuts. I like the way this roster's kind of shaking out. There are definitely holes. You are starting to see where at first I thought it was a 10-win team. You do have a lot of question marks that are emerging that will probably, if they don't get answered the right way, probably knock this team down to a 9 or 8-win team. But listen, going into this project and the entire history of the Lions, we've all thought that they were cursed, that they have a history that is less than desirable, but it could be turning around. You never know. When one podcaster meets arguably your number one wide receiver and you have a nice little brief chat and conversation.
That's true. You were shaking hands with Golden, weren't you?
I introduced myself, told him what I did, and introduced him to my wife, and he was very complimentary. But it was one of those situations where I knew, looking at him, that he was kind of like, oh, man, I just wanted to go shoot craps with the boys, and why is this clown kind of coming up to me? But, hey, I was respectful, and I just laid it out there, and that's just the way I'm going to be because that's, once I turn 30, that's the attitude I said in my life. I'm going to do whatever I think is right, irregardless of what anybody thinks. And all I did was walk up to him because at first, like I text you, I'm like, I think Golden Tate's here. And I called out his name, but he was on his phone like everybody else in the world is. And he's walking around. And then all of a sudden he walked right into my path. And I just said, hey, I'm John. I do a podcast in town. I'm a Lions fan and stay healthy. I wish you luck. And he's like, oh, good. Thank you. And
did you invite him on the show?
When he looked like he was walking briskly, so I did not.
Crabs table, bro. Come on now.
Listen, I was privy to some information regarding Golden, and he's a businessman, and so I'm not going to commit financially to have him appear on the podcast. And so he would have, probably been respectful, but sent me to his agent. And I'm like, come on. I just wanted to say, would you like to take a picture with the doc? And he was gracious, was nice to Andrea. And it was very interesting what was going down this weekend at MGM, but he's now aware of us. And I'm like, hey, we do a big, and of course, I always say, I always like to use hyperbole. I go, we do a huge podcast in town. We're a big Lions fan, and good luck, stay healthy. That's what I would say to any of the athletes I meet, is just stay healthy, good luck, and keep it moving. So it's about a couple minutes. We had a nice chat. I told him, hey, I can get you a chain that's probably worthy of your status, because that chain, I can make it bling out a little bit more than what he was rocking. But if you want to check it out, the doc met Golden Tate at Detroit Podcast. And I said it could go two ways, because once that picture was shared, I got a whole bunch of texts to my phone that were like, great, Lions are cursed, because we have this, joke among the podcast that we're cursed.
That's true.
When we talk about an athlete in a glowing terms, he ends up getting hurt or gone for the year. And already two of my fantasy players that I have in one league are already out with injury. Teddy Bridgewater and Benjamin Watson, both ACL.
And Teddy Bridgewater sounds like his knee just went kaboom.
Exactly.
Like dislocated kneecap, torn, like completely torn ACL. And there is concerns that he may not make a full recovery ever.
Exactly. And so then I said, you know what? I'm going to throw it out there that no, this is not a curse. This meeting was meant to happen. because who has railed on the Lions the most in the majority of these 160 episodes? You and I. We've said probably in a good ratio, 75% negative to 25% positive. And we've tried, but we're just objectively looking at what we see with the Lions. But I said, no, I'm going to put it out there in the atmosphere that this is a turnaround. This was cosmically meant to happen, where I was supposed to meet Golden at the time this year. And with that, I'm going to use that as a way to tell us and tell the universe things might be turning around with your Detroit Lions. And what happens? Unfortunately, listen, we don't want to promote injuries. We're not cheerful that a man got hurt. But competitively, we want to wish Teddy Bridgewater a speedy recovery. Hope everything goes great, like everybody else. But competitively, this is great for the Lions. It's an opportunity now to probably start off the year firmly planted as the number 2 team ranked in the NFC North. And you know the number 1 seed, the team that you're going to go out there and try to beat, is the Green Bay Packers. But if things fall in your favor, a quarterback that was kind of highly touted, emerging, Minnesota's defense, what has been talked about as a major strength. So I think by all accounts, everyone's predictions were Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago battling it out for 3 and 4. But I think this is a good thing that Teddy Bridgewater is no longer going to be playing in the 2016 season.
I wish we had cameras in here right now so everybody could see my face.
Yeah.
I've got my hand holding my face up right now, and I'm looking at you with just the blankest stare ever. Are you serious? You really believe that this is going to help catapult this team to number 2 in the NFC North?
I think it's a fair observation.
All right, let me give you some information here, okay? Let me kind of break you down a little bit.
What are you on the Sean Hill bandwagon? He's going to come in from Minnesota?
Devastate you here just a little bit. All right, do you realize that Minnesota won the NFC North last season with Teddy Bridgewater only throwing over 250 yards 4 times? 4 times all season, okay? So at this point in Teddy Bridgewater's career, and with that team that they have built around him, remember, they are a run-first team that stops the run on defense. You have probably the most explosive core of wide receivers on that team. You've got probably, arguably, the best running back in the league. You've got an upgraded offensive line. You've got an upgraded defensive line. You have safeties that are ball hawks and make plays, and you've got a nasty set of linebackers over there. The only place where they might be weak now that Teddy Bridgewater has gone down with a knee that went kaboom is at quarterback. I think Sean Hill can step in, and I think he can game manage because that's what Teddy Bridgewater was. When you don't throw for over 250 yards in 12 out of your 16 games that you play a season, and then you go to the playoffs, and in the playoffs, honestly, you sit there and you put up some paltry numbers. You average 146. You average 135 yards ish. Yeah, about 135 yards throwing the ball in the playoffs. You're a game manager. Sean Hill can come in and do all of that. Mark Sanchez. There are now reports that Minnesota's looking at possibly bringing Mark Sanchez in. Mark Sanchez can do that for you. They've got enough pieces around them to sit there and to be able to carry the Minnesota Vikings. After I seen what I seen in Game 3, and I know it's preseason, I get it. Believe me, I understand. But I waste my time watching. I sit there, I look at different things. I don't think this offensive line is good enough yet. I think it's a major weakness for this team. I think you've got probably another season before it becomes really good. I don't think that your linebacking core has stabilized. I know that DeAndre Levy's back. It's his first game, but I think there's some kinks that have to be worked out there. I don't like the running game of this team. The wide receivers, though I think it will be good, I think it takes a huge hit when you lose a guy like Calvin Johnson. I just don't see this team putting up the numbers and doing what it has to do to sit there and overcome Minnesota. If you want to talk, do I think that this makes a little bit of a difference record-wise? I do. I think instead of now losing 2 games to Minnesota, you might split one with them. So instead of maybe being a 6-7 win team, maybe you are now an 8-win team. But you're still 3rd in the NFC North because it's Green Bay's to win. I think Green Bay's going to take this entire league down. I don't know. I don't know where you sit with it.
Go Lions! Yeah!
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.
No, this is what's going to happen. So here's the part where I disagree with you. When you say you lose your number 1 quarterback, it's no easy feat to just come back and game manage. Because remember, you think it's just easy to come in there and just dink and dunk the ball around? Remember.
Do you remember when Sean Hill was here for the Lions? He was more than adequate as a backup.
But going into it, you can't assume that because what's going to happen is defenses are now going to really make it simple. Sean Hill, go out and beat us. 8 in the box. Now, Sean Hill, you think it's going to be easy to dink and dunk? You're going to have defenders all up there in the line. then that means potentially more turnovers. You don't even get to see the 143 yards of passing. When you have a team that doesn't have a solid quarterback that can take chances effectively, that can game manage, then you're going to have more turnovers, you're going to have more drive stall, and you can't discount the strengths that Teddy Bridgewater had in terms of his intangibles, in terms of running for first downs. That production basically is going to be lost. In terms of his potential replacements, Mark Sanchez, Sean Hill, but a name could pop up that may kind of make it an interesting conversation should a certain guy who doesn't want to stand for the national anthem be transitioned and moved to Minnesota, that being Colin Kaepernick. That would kind of raise my eyebrows a little bit and go, maybe a fresh start with a renewed passion to prove everybody wrong and shove all this nonsense down everybody's throat. That would raise alarms for me. But I just don't say, hey, you lose your number one quarterback, and Sean Hill just, hey, I'm going to plug and play you as a game manager. Yes, Minnesota has a lot of things around them, but the quarterback position, arguably, in the NFL is the number one position. And if you lose that guy, I cannot sit here and say that Sean Hill leading the Minnesota Vikings is going to be ahead of the Detroit Lions led by Matthew Stafford. I can't see that because you got to remember, you're going to have to play 2 games versus Minnesota. I do think that it was going into the year probably going to be a split. I think you have an above average chance of winning both games versus them, both games versus the Bears, and you go at it in a slugfest versus Green Bay. So I firmly believe, sitting here today, that the Detroit Lions are going to emerge as the number 2 team in the NFC North. I just think you don't lose a Teddy Bridgewater and everything go great, because you also got to remember, this is probably a huge blow for the Vikings morale. I just think that they had such high hopes of not only just getting to the postseason, but maybe making a run. And now you got to go in with a Sean Hill. I think the season it could be in disarray for the Vikings, and a good team like the Green Bay Packers is going to take advantage. And I'm hoping now that the Lions will be one of those teams that take advantage and maybe get a renewed sense of hype and hope that they can do some things. Because in the NFL, if you got a team and you got hope, that can carry you a long way. And so I disagree with you. You don't lose a Teddy Bridgewater and all his kosher and Sean Hill comes in and does the job. I disagree 100%.
Here's the deal. With Teddy Bridgewater being a mobile quarterback and Adrian Peterson, you were stuffing 8 in the box no matter what. It doesn't matter. Sean Hill has a good enough arm, and he can read defenses well enough to be able to throw the ball down the field. And you've got guys like newly drafted rookie Laquan Treadwell. You've got Diggs. You've got pieces on the outside who can sit there and make plays, get separation, and do big things. I think this team is more than capable of sitting there and putting together victories, making a run, and holding on to second in the NFC North, and sitting there taking on a wild card. I don't think they beat Green Bay. I do think they beat the Lions. Here's the thing, too. This football team, the way it is coached, the way it is set up, and the way it is ran very old school. It is not dependent necessarily on a quarterback. They have enough pieces everywhere else but at quarterback to be able to do things. Again, at this point in his career, Teddy Bridgewater was supposed to take a huge step this year. A huge step. If you get the similar production from a guy like Sean Hill that you got from Teddy Bridgewater, you're going to be okay. You're going to sit there, you're going to make it to the playoffs. And if you're the Detroit Lions, you're on the outside looking in. Unless Green Bay completely implodes and you sit there and you do better than what you've shown through 3 preseason games.
It's going to be interesting to watch, that's for sure.
I just don't see Minnesota falling to the back of the pack by losing Teddy Bridgewater. Look, I like Teddy Bridgewater. I wanted the Lions to draft him. I thought he was going to be a good quarterback that the Lions could sit there and nurture and bring along, and then instead of having to go out and pay Matt Stafford a ton of money, you could have sat there and you could have had Teddy Bridgewater. I wanted them to. They did not. Minnesota got him. And look, he's turned into a little bit of a game manager who was on the precipice of taking that next step. I just see if Sean Hill can give you what Teddy Bridgewater gave you, you're doing A-okay. You want to go out, you want to go get a guy like Colin Kaepernick? Knock yourself out. Essentially, it's the same player, right? He's a mobile quarterback who can throw the ball down the field. I don't know if he makes great decisions when he's reading a defense, but you can sit there and you can do that if you want to. Again, this team is built to run the ball, stop the run, and that's how they're going to win games.
Do you think that Minnesota's going to stick with Sean Hill, or you think they'll go out and get Mark Sanchez and Colin Kaepernick?
I think they're going to stick with Sean Hill. I know he's 37. He's more than capable as a backup. He honestly could sit there for some of these teams in this league. He could challenge to be a starting quarterback. Honestly, he's that good. He's not a horrible quarterback. He's not great. And I'm not going to build him out to be, the second coming of Joe Montana, but he's a good quarterback. He knows what he has to do. He doesn't sit there and try to do too much. He's smart with the ball. He'll win you a couple games. He'll win you 9 games at least. You know, you got a guy like Adrian Peterson. He'll win you a couple games. You know, the way, like I said, the way the team's set up, I have no concerns about it. I think that Minnesota is going to be just fine. And as a Lions fan, it does make me a little bit upset because this team is not constructed well enough yet to win. It's one of those processes where the Lions haven't imploded or they haven't deconstructed the team enough to where they've got to now go through a rebuild. They're kind of trying to rebuild on the fly. You got a couple pieces. You're trying to add a few other things. It's going to take time. I think the Lions have maybe another year or two before we can start talking about them maybe being the next big thing, especially coming out of the NFC North.
Now, it doesn't seem viable just in terms of cap numbers, but do you make, if you're the Lions and Bob Quinn, a preemptive move if Colin Kaepernick is released and, you know, hey, get rid of Dan Orlovsky, maybe one other guy, and take on whatever salary that San Francisco doesn't take on? Do you bring Colin Kaepernick as a backup and, hey, maybe hope that he turns it around here in Detroit maybe as a viable option as a backup for Matthew Stafford?
I don't think so, just because he doesn't fit the offense. It's a totally different setup you got there. Colin Kaepernick's a guy who can make plays with his feet. He's a guy who can throw the ball down the field. He comes from an offense where it kind of likes to dink and dunk a little bit, and that's what this offense is going to become, this Detroit Lions offense. It's going to become that. Just watch. But I think they look more for a pocket passer than a guy who can sit there, scramble a little bit, and make plays with his feet.
Okay, so the Colin Kaepernick hasn't earned the title yet where you tailor your offense to him.
Right.
Okay.
Here's the thing. If it became Mark Sanchez and Colin Kaepernick, I think the Lions would go out and get a guy like Mark Sanchez before they go out and get a guy like Colin Kaepernick. On top of it, you don't want to deal with that headache that's swirling around him right now. You know, and talking about that, do you have any issues with Jim Caldwell coming out and saying that he's not going to punish any of his players if they don't stand for the national anthem?
I'm wondering to see if more athletes across the NFL, baseball, in other leagues, are they going to take the stand similar to Colin Kaepernick? It's not against the law to sit for the national anthem, and so I don't see coaches punishing guys. It is a PR nightmare, as you're seeing, so I don't see too many other guys willing to step up and do that. I just thought in terms of Colin Kaepernick, he could have used his voice without having to sit for the national anthem, but in another way, if you kind of look at it, he is getting the most attention for what he did, but unfortunately, it's getting drowned out when you look at it now from afar. His message is not even being talked about. All we're talking about is, does he like the Army? Does he respect the country? You barely are even hearing any talk about what he's even standing up for. So with that, when you look at it, you go, I just think if you wanted to protest, you just stand up there when you're in a press conference with all the microphones and you have a Twitter with millions of followers. And he's been tweeting it. He's been tweeting. This is not news. Now he's just using his voice. And so if you want to stand up there in a pulpit, use your voice and in a platform, gather your compadres and colleagues and make your stand. So I don't have a problem with Caldwell saying that because it's a form of protest and you have a right in this country to, disagree with certain things that you see. But on a grand scale, is this good for his career? When we talked about Michael Sam and his sexuality, I say this. Is this a good thing for Colin Kaepernick? No. Because in general, if there's one team, just one, that will not take you if you get cut because of what you say, you've hurt your chances. You now have one less opportunity to have a job in the NFL. This is not a good thing for him. I think it's backfired in terms of how this is being perceived. And so, in my opinion, if you limit your opportunities and any options are limited, it's not a good thing at all. He will get a second chance. And again, you saw now with Minnesota, you're one play away from your quarterback going down. Now there's probably an opportunity for him at Minnesota. But in terms of Jim Caldwell, I think he's a stand-up guy. And he'll say, listen, he'll have a conversation. He'll do his due diligence to help understand a player in terms of why they're protesting. But I don't think any player needs to be disciplined because what's going to happen is if things fall correctly, society's going to discipline Kaepernick. If he maybe doesn't get another job if he gets cut, if maybe no other team says, hey, that's too much of a headache, that will discipline him on his own. I don't think you need a coach to do that at all.
I don't have an issue if Jim Caldwell disciplines guys or not. For something like this is what makes America great. You're allowed to go out. You're allowed to do essentially what you want, how you want, when you want. And nobody's going to tell you otherwise. As long as you don't break the law. And sitting for the national anthem, whether you think it's disrespectful, disgraceful, whatever, you're not breaking the law. And the one thing you can say about what Colin Kaepernick has done is he has stirred the pot. He has forced you to talk about this. He is doing this for a cause that he believes in. Whether you say he should have done this years ago, shouldn't be doing it now, whatever it may be. He has forced you to now talk about it and to discuss this. I was at the gym the other day, sitting there hopping on a bike for my warm-up before I go and lift, and there were 2 white women, older, sitting there on bikes, riding around, and they were sitting in front of the Sports Center TV, and they started discussing it. They were sitting there talking about it. I mean, he has basically forced everybody to stop what they're doing to talk about this. I think that's a great thing. I don't necessarily agree with him sitting for the national anthem, but he has forced you to now stand up, look at what he is talking about, and for you to basically take a side. And now you have to discuss what he's talking about. And I think that's a great thing, because there are issues in this country. We've got all kinds of warts, and things do have to get addressed, and things do have to get taken care of. And he has now used his stage, what he does every single Sunday, and has said, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a stand right here, right now. And whether you want to talk about it or not, this is what I'm doing. And I think it's great. He has forced people to sit there and recognize what he is doing and is making you discuss it. I mean, shoot, we're talking about it right now on this podcast. And whether it hurts his chances for another team, I think you're right. He may sit there and hinder himself just a little bit, but there's way too much talent with that guy where he will not get picked up by another team. The NFL is one of those leagues where it really doesn't matter what you do, as long as you can perform. Can you perform for me on Sunday? If you can perform for me on Sunday, you're going to be on this team. I mean, what? Leonard Little sat there and killed, 2-3 people drunk driving? Honestly, what happened next? He was right there playing for the Dallas Cowboys. You have these cases all the time. Look at Josh Gordon. Phenomenal wide receiver. Phenomenal. The guy sit there and can't stay off the weed, man. The guy loves to get high. He loves it. It's his deal. That's his bag. So sat there, almost smoked himself out of the league. Guess what? Gets another chance. He's going to sit 4 games, and he's going to be right there on Cleveland's roster unless they can trade him for something of value. But again, he'll get traded to somebody who will utilize him. If you have talent in this league, your talent supersedes everything stupid that you might do, and you'll play. And that's kind of where Colin Kaepernick is. And I think he realizes that. He's like, I've got a fat contract. I'm not really worried about the money right now. If they want to cut me, let them cut me. Somebody will pick me up. I'll be fine. I'll go play for whoever. And that's where he's at.
Because when an athlete retires and he's played football for, let's say, a decade, and he's been beat up, and he just got married, what do you think he's going to do with his time? Hang out, go on vacation, maybe go to Vegas, maybe go to Milan, maybe hang out in the beaches of Florida, South Beach. Do you think he's going to go and dance and audition and take meetings to go out to L.A. to do a reality show?
I know I wouldn't.
I would say that when the news came and it broke earlier in the week that Calvin Johnson was going to be a cast member on Dancing with the Stars, I was just like, get out of here. Absolutely not. He's not doing that. That is so Lions that he would say, I'm hurt. I can't play football, but I'm definitely going to dance 8 hours a day. No doubt about it. And everyone said, right away, the media is going to ask Golden Tate. They're going to ask people that showed up to his wedding, hey, at the wedding, did Calvin bust a rug? Was he doing his thing? And they're all like, no, he just was regular. He just doesn't look like a guy that's going to really be a competitive dancer. Calvin Johnson, seriously, why couldn't you just do what you said you were going to do? Go off into the sunset. Why be in the limelight with Dancing with the Stars? It just, for me, doesn't seem like there's too much gain for him. I don't know if he's going to be able to even compete. Heaven forbid he gets caught first or he makes a mistake, further adding to the Lions' lore of mediocrity. I'm hoping, and I'm going to make a push, I'm going to vote for Calvin no matter what he does. I'm voting 35 times, and whatever I got to do, I want Calvin to win this damn Dancing with the Stars trophy.
So you're going to watch?
100%.
What a weirdo.
I've watched seasons before because my wife and mother-in-law are into it. They like to watch it.
That's why.
100%.
That's why. This coming from the guy who likes to watch the Kardashians as well.
And the entire series of the Real Housewives.
Yes.
Every city.
Exactly. Oh, there's all hot messes. I want your real reaction to this. Were you upset when this news broke? Did it piss you off?
No, it didn't piss me off. I knew, and I said it, and I took flack from you and Jason. I called him soft. He left football because he couldn't handle the rigors, and now he wants to go dance in a competition. Really? If you were good, listen, it's not you just show up there on a Monday night on live TV. You're training 6 to 7 hours. Stop, start. They show the behind-the-scenes footage. Dude's going to be prancing around in rehearsals for starting now. You're recovered now. Now your fingers are great. Your aching knees are recovered just in that offseason. Come on now. You didn't want to play football because you knew you were playing for a losing organization and you knew you probably were going to get hurt further. Just go off into the sunset. Most people thought you don't want to be in the limelight. Now you want to go off to L.A. Come on now.
Do we know who he's dancing with yet?
Yeah, his partner, if you look on Instagram, if you follow Justin Rogers on Twitter, he tweeted out a link to the lady who kind of hinted at it. She didn't say Calvin Johnson, but she said, a former NFL player who played with the same team.
All right, I'm going to Google who, because I don't have Instagram. Who is Calvin?
It's a blonde young lady.
Is she hot?
Yes.
Who is Calvin Johnson's dancing
Let's realistically
partner?
assess it. Do you think he'll advance in this thing, or will he be?
No.
Ryan Lochte's going out first.
Ryan Lochte's a boner. Like, that guy's just a total dweeb.
So he'll go out first, probably.
Yes, I agree. Because he's going to be all like, dude, this was awesome. I'm great. No, you're not, dude. No, you're not. You're horrible.
But do you see success?
Well, there have been football players that have won before, right? Didn't Emmitt Smith win?
Emmitt Smith, I think Jerry Rice.
Mm-hmm.
One other one, too. So, but do you see him doing some things like flipping the girls and doing
Lindsay Arnold. Let's Google image Lindsay Arnold.
And there you go. You're going to be very impressed.
I will be very impressed.
But do you just think that,
Lindsay Arnold.
Do you look less upon Calvin Johnson?
Yes. No, I look more on her. Woohoo! Wow.
And exactly for Calvin's wife. You're going to let him,
bro.
This is supposed to be the first 3-4 months of your marriage. You're going to let him go off and just.
What you going to do, man?
So,
oh boy. There's this one with her in a pink shirt, and it's just like, boobs and short shorts. All you see are boobs and short. I don't really like her mouth. She's got a weird mouth. But, yes.
He's upgraded.
She is
spending 8 hours with her is no problem.
She's very strong up top. She's very fit up in the upper regions, and she got a nice little turd cutter on her too. Yeah, her shit squeegee's nice there. So she's quality, bro. And look, man, I don't know if Calvin's gonna win. I don't know how these things get done because I don't watch this crap. I really don't. I don't know how you watch this stuff. I know you like to blame my cousin and my aunt for all of this, and I get that, dude. I totally understand. But I think deep down you really like these things and you're interested by them. I think you like the drama that comes along with the Real Housewives and the Kardashians and all that stuff. And I'm uncomfortable watching all those things. I don't watch this. I have no idea how the voting works. I have no idea how things get done. I think he's going to have all of Detroit polling for him, so that'll help out. I think he'll have football fans polling for him, so that'll help out. Again, he's a big dude. He's long. He's lean. He's got good feet. You've seen it in the NFL. And Calvin has shown me time and time again that there's nothing that he can't accomplish if he wants to accomplish something. I think he's got a very good shot of winning this. I'm not watching, though.
Okay,
you're gonna have to keep me filled in every single week.
I will be the correspondent for Dancing with the Stars.
Every week we're gonna have the Calvin Johnson update desk, and that'll be you telling me what the hell's going on because I'm not watching any of this.
Okay, good.
She's not bad looking. I don't like her face so much, but her body's nice.
All right. So the good news is, let's put this third preseason game for the Lions behind us. They're gonna, go through the motions for the fourth preseason game. I don't even care who they're playing, and then let's see what happens next week when we break down the first game versus the Indianapolis Colts, a game in which I think you have to win to get the season off to a good start. I can't wait to break it down, see who we can chat with as well regarding the Lions season opener, September 11th, on the road. Can't wait for it. The Lions, I have a feeling, could be something cosmic where we're going to turn it around and maybe, just maybe, have more successful talks and positivity regarding the Detroit Lions.
Should we put a beer bet on whether or not the Lions finish ahead of the Vikings?
Yes.
Put a six-pack on it?
Six-pack. Coors Light. You got it.
All right.
I would love drinking that. Definitely. No doubt about it. All right. Stay with us. Episode 160 will roll along. When we come back, we're going to dial up Rico Beard, 92.1 FM, host of the Spartan Beat, starting next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Stay with us on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
DocNJock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out FanaticU.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wings shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, FanaticU.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah. That's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the
Welcome back to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, the Doc and Jock Show. On the line with us right now is new radio host of the Spartan Beat on 92.1 FM in Lansing, taking place, Tuesdays from 6 to 7? Is that right, Rico? We got Rico Beard on the line. Big time.
It's actually it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's
Okay.
just starting on Tuesday because of Labor Day. So that's
right.
why it's starting on Tuesday instead of Monday.
And it's going to be on 92.1 FM in Lansing. It's 6 to 7, you said?
Correct.
Outstanding. Well, hey, man, congratulations on the new gig. Loved listening to you
Thank
when
you.
you were on 105.1 there. It was you were entertaining. Loved your show. Big fan. So it's good that good people are doing good things, man. We appreciate the time and we appreciate you you coming on here. And hey, man, best of luck with the new show.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks, fellas.
All right, well, let's just dive into this. We got you on to talk MSU because you're a Spartan. John's a Spartan. I can't stand both of you guys because you're Spartans, but that's okay. That's beside the point here. What should
Okay.
No, hell no, get out of here, bro. Come on now. I'm a Wolverine, man.
You
I believe that amazing blue.
So you root for the junior varsity? Okay.
Something like that. Hey, we're turning the corner. All right, we got.
You've been turning that corner for 8 years now.
Hey, Hoke was a joke. It's okay. All right, let's delve into this here. What should MSU fans expect out of Tyler O'Connor?
You know what? I think you should expect a quarterback. I would say probably a little bit of a hybrid between what Kirk Cousins was and what Connor Cook was. I don't think that there'll be that much of a drop-off. Connor Cook played big in all the big games, so you can't – I don't know if you could expect that out of another quarterback right away. But I think he has the big play ability. This is a guy that sat for 5 years. He could have walked away a long time ago, but he looked forward to this year because he knew when he lost the job to Connor Cook, it may only come down for him being the starting quarterback for 1 year. So he's waited his entire MSU career for this year. This is a guy that can lead, and, so there'll be no controversy. He was elected the captain. This is a guy who went into Columbus and did something that no other Big Ten quarterback could do, and that's beat the Buckeyes and Columbus and beat Urban Meyer and hand Urban Meyer his first regular season Big Ten loss. So I think with him, as the year progresses, you're going to see more and more of the swag. I think you may see MSU do a lot of what they did the first year of Connor Cook, where they're going to rely on their defense a lot in the early games and then let the offense catch up to them. And I think by the end of the year, you'll probably be looking at one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the Big Ten.
You said you mentioned Tyler O'Connor's swag. What type of intangibles does he bring to the table besides that swag that you just brought up?
I think the intangible is that, and you kind of saw it in the Ohio State game, he'll do whatever it takes to get that extra yard. 3rd and 1, 4th and 2. If he has to tuck it and run and take a hit, he will. He'll do whatever it takes. I don't think he's going to be one just to turn the ball over to the punter and say, we'll get him next time. He's going to try and always pick up that first down. And also just in the huddle, he just has that leadership ability that these guys listen to him and they're going to follow him wherever they can go. And he says he doesn't want to be a one-hit wonder. He doesn't want that Ohio State game to be the only thing that people will say about him. And I got a feeling that will be one of many games we'll be saying and talking about Tyler O'Connor.
Probably one of the question marks that a lot of us have is what's going to happen with the MSU offense with losing 3/5 of your offensive line, losing Connor Cook. But there is a highly touted group. That's the MSU freshman wide receivers. Can you speak on the incoming class and who do you expect to produce well in his freshman season?
Well, the freshman wide receivers, I think this is probably their best haul, not only under D'Antonio, but maybe ever. Yesterday at the press conference, he said that Donnie Corley will definitely be on the field and will play this year. He will not redshirt, barring some unforeseen injury. The other three, Justin Lane, Tristan Jackson, and Cam Chambers, probably 1, maybe 2 will stick around and actually play this year. Donnie's the only one that will see the field, and I think he's going to see significant time. According to his teammates, he's a player that Michigan State fans and people in East Lansing really haven't seen before. He's that type of an athlete. Some comparisons to the good comparisons to Charles Rogers, the good side of Charles Rogers, not that other side of Charles Rogers, but Charles Rogers on the field at Michigan State with his hands, his leaping ability, and his speed, that, he's that type of receiver that they haven't seen, in about 16 years now. So I think that they're going to be very talented. But I think some of the other guys get lost in the wash because everybody talks about the freshman receivers. But a guy like Felton Davis III, Darryl Stewart is going to be a big name that I think a lot of people and Spartan fans need to get used to hearing. He's going to be on the kickoff and punt team as well, and he's going to also be in that wide receiver rotation. He's a redshirt freshman kid out of Texas. I think he's going to do some big things, and they're really hoping that Monty Medeiros, a senior, kind of has that Aaron Burbridge type senior year where, let's face it, before last year, Burbridge was carrying that bust label. He had a lot of hype coming out of high school, a lot of injuries, and a lot of underwhelming performances in East Lansing. And then last year, the light switch clicks on, and he becomes, their leading receiver, all-time leading receiver, and he's the Big Ten wide receiver of the year. So they're hoping that switch turns out for Monty Medeiros too. But to answer your original question, Corley definitely will see the field, and I think you're going to see a lot of special things out of him. For him, he's got to handle that pressure because a lot of Michigan State fans are expecting him to don a green cape and fly around the field. And you got to remember that he's still just a freshman, and freshmen tend to make freshman mistakes.
Now, a guy who's going to help out Tyler O'Connor and help out those Michigan State wide receivers, L.J. Scott. He's a guy who basically had his coming out party during the Big Ten championship game. He was an absolute savage down that last drive, just eating up the clock. What can Michigan State fans expect out of L.J. Scott headed into this season?
I think for L.J. Scott, exactly what you saw last season. He's just that guy that I often tell, kids on the recruiting trail when they're like, oh, I want to start. I'm like, you don't want to be the starter. You want to be the guy that finishes the game because that means the coach really, really depends on you to get that victory. And you look and you see at the end of the Ohio State game, it was L.J. Scott in the backfield. At the end of the Big Ten championship game, that was L.J. Scott on that historic drive. I think that you're going to see a lot of the same from him, but with that backfield that they have, honestly, you couldn't go wrong with either of the three, with Madre London, with Gerald Holmes, or with L.J. Scott. I think Scott will get the nod, but in talking with the three of them during the summer camp, they all know that you got to protect the ball. You can't fumble. You can't make mistakes. You can't have negative plays because there are two other guys behind you who are just as good, who want to have your carry. So last year, I think they divided up the carries. I think L.J. Scott had 150, and I think the other two had like 120 and 115 carries. They probably will go again. Antonio says he's going to do that hot hand thing. I don't know which is better, the years like they had Javon Ringer and Le'Veon Bell and they ran those two to death, or when you rotate your backs in and out. But looking at LJ, he's that power back. He's probably the closest thing that reminds me a lot of Le'Veon Bell. Size, strength, power. And kind of like Le'Veon, he's minus that kick, that fifth gear, that able just to take it to the house. Javon Ringer could do that type of stuff. Edwin Baker could. L.J. Scott can take you about a good 40, 50 yards, and then he's probably going to get caught.
Rico Beard, host of the Spartan Beat, 92.1 FM in Lansing. Now, Rico, one of the best parts about the Michigan State rivalry is all the smack talk on Twitter, hanging with your boys, trying to talk about whether Harbaugh's going to bring the Wolverines a national title. Now, though, with Michigan State's recent success, with winning the Rose Bowl, Big Ten title games, getting to the college football playoff first, it's been great being a Sparty fan, kind of watching the evolution of Michigan State, and maybe a little bit of smack talk going back the other way. Last week, Curtis Blackwell made a little bit of news with the tweet coming out saying those who have stayed are already champions, made news kind of saying, hey, listen, Michigan State's doing some things over here. Did you like that tweet? Do you believe that maybe potentially that could be used as bulletin board material over there in Maize and Blue Country?
Well, I mean, I've often said if you need bulletin board material, then you probably need to go back and practice a little bit harder. No, I mean, when Curtis called and told me he was, before he tweeted it out, he was like, hey, I'm thinking about tweeting this out. What do you think? And I'm like, well, it's factual. It's true. It'll probably upset another fan base, but they don't own that slogan. As a matter of fact, here's a little bit of history lesson, fellas. Bear Bryant came up with that statement that Bear Bryant used to coach Alabama. So that's not a Bo statement. Bo kind of borrowed it, and Michigan stole it, kind of like they did the winged helmets. They didn't come up with those either, but if you tell a lie enough times, people believe it.
Hey, we just wear all that stuff the best. That's all there is to it. Don't worry about that.
Okay. But no, it's true. I mean, Izzo made a living off of, before Keith Appling and Adrian Payne, he could walk into a kid's living room and say, you come to my school and you stay 4 years, I'll get you to a Final Four. Mark D'Antonio in 10 years can look at any kid and say, you stick with me for 4 years, I'll get you to a Big Ten championship game, and we will win it. Because he's done that now. And every person who stayed 4 years has a Big Ten championship ring. And you know what? Why not? Why not crow about it? I mean, when you're on top, let people know. And I didn't see any problem with it. As a matter of fact, I told him the only thing that would have been funnier if you would have had all those stats, and then instead of saying those who stayed are already champions, if it would have just said who's really got it better than us.
All right, Rico, we'll get you out of here on this. I like how you guys like to poke the bear. Go ahead, keep poking. We'll see what happens.
Well, man, that bear is dead, man. Okay.
Oh, hey, as the season goes on, we're gonna have you back on here. We're gonna discuss some things right before that Michigan State game. We'll have you back on if you got time for us. We'll get you back on. We'll discuss. All right, so several national media and different reporters have Ohio State atop the Big Ten and winning it. Ohio State lost a lot of different key pieces to the NFL draft last season. So why are they so highly touted, and why does everybody have them penciled in as winning the Big Ten East?
I think they got Ohio State highly touted because the simple fact that they got a lot of people sitting behind them. And just because you're young or inexperienced does not mean that you're not capable of getting the job done. I mean, I'm trying to think of the back that they had before, Ezekiel Elliott, but he gets drafted to the pros. Ezekiel Elliott steps in, and they don't miss a beat. And I think the same will happen with Mike Weber, kid out of Detroit Cass Tech. I think he'll take over the running back spot, and he'll be fine. They have recruited well. They are in the top 5 in the nation in the last few years, and you're going to see a lot of these guys. This is their time. And think about it like this. Maybe they weren't playing last year because they had NFL players playing in front of them. Didn't mean that they weren't as talented. I mean, if you go back a little old school, for years, Steve Young had to sit behind Joe Montana. Both are in the Hall of Fame. Steve Young had to sit. Why? Because he had Joe Montana in front of him. And I think Ohio State just had a lot of NFL players that were playing, and a lot of the younger guys just had to wait their turn. And when you're stocked and loaded, I mean, you see the same thing going on in Alabama. That's why every year, no matter who they lose, people put Alabama in their top 5 because they recruit so well that they're not going to miss a beat. And if they do, it's so rare. And I think Ohio State has reached that rarefied air that, I think that Oklahoma will get them early because this is going to be the first time those young guys really go on the big stage. But by the time the end of the year rolls around and they have to play their 2 biggest games in the Big Ten, those guys are going to be a lot more seasoned, and they're going to be ready. And I agree with a lot of people. I do think Ohio State's probably going to win the Big Ten. If the Michigan or the Michigan State game were early in the season, I think that maybe those teams could pick them off. But because they happen so late, there's going to be different players than with the same players that you're going to see in Oklahoma. I would tell people that's not the Ohio State team that you'll see at the end of the year. Oklahoma may destroy them. Don't lose faith. The Buckeyes will be resilient. They'll bounce back, and they'll win this thing.
Outstanding, Rico. Hey, we really appreciate your time. Everybody, check out Rico Beard. You can follow him on Twitter at Rico Beard. Also, check out his new show, The Spartan Beat, on 92.1 FM out there in Lansing. It's starting Tuesday, and it's going to be running 6 p.m. till 7 p.m. Rico, best of luck. Thank you for the time. We know you're busy. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
You have a good one. A ton of great info on Michigan State. It really looks like they're going to do some things. I was nervous that Michigan State might be in some questionable hands. I know Tyler O'Connor's a 5th-year senior, but this is his first year. It's his first go-round, really getting the reins and taking control of that Spartan offense. But according to everybody we've talked to, including Rico Beard, it looks like they're in really good hands.
there are always going to be question marks when you have a first-year quarterback, but he's done some things. He's not just a guy that you don't have any tape on. When you go to Ohio State on the road, make key throws and do some things, I think that Michigan State is going to surround him with some talent. And when you have a good running game and you have solid wide receivers and, as Rico said, a class of freshman receivers that's probably considered one of the best that's ever come into Michigan State, they're going to, I think, keep the train rolling. It's just going to be in those crunch time moments when they play a team like Notre Dame, when they play Michigan and Ohio State, are they going to come through in those key moments? There's been magic in the past. A lot of people are saying that they're thinking 9-3, 10-2 for Michigan State, and that's. I'm not going to give when we talk about what we think the records are going to be. I can't decide if it's 9-3 or 10-2, so I'm going to be in that window. The key games obviously are going to be Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State. How are you going to do in those key moments? 9-10 wins is a fair starting point with this Michigan State team. That's what I believe. Yeah, but I don't think they're going to win the Big Ten East, though.
I think you're absolutely right. You know, anywhere from 9 to 10 wins, you're right there. Mark D'Antonio has done it year after year. I mean, he's had basically 1 year where they've basically taken a step back, and right after that, you were in the Rose Bowl. So you're in really good hands if you're a Spartan. So I think 9 to 10, you're right there at a good starting point. I see good things for Michigan State. I don't think they win the Big Ten East, however. I think that's going to come down to two other teams. And to shed a little light on two other teams, we've got a host of the BTN Network, Dave Revsine. He's going to be on the line with us here in just a moment, so stick around.
I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to TopCatTeamSales.com. That's TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat. On the phone with us right now on the Detroit Sports Podcast, he is the studio host for the Big Ten Network. Dave Revsine, 9 years at the Big Ten Network. Got a chance to check out your tweet. Have you had a chance, Dave, to check out, and reflect on the time that you spent there at the Big Ten Network? The network is doing some great things.
Yeah, it's been neat, John. The 9-year anniversary was on August the 30th, and so it definitely makes you reflect a little bit anytime that you hit a milestone. I think next year will be a particularly big one for us when we get to 10. But, it's been a great ride. It has exceeded my expectations, and frankly, my expectations were really high. I mean, it's just been an incredible run. A great group of people. We've had incredible consistency, particularly with our studio teams, which I think has helped immensely, and it has been a tremendous experience and continues to be.
And now here in Michigan, we're all excited for the start of college football. Lots of analysis regarding Michigan, Michigan State. How are these teams going to rebound from the 2015 season? Are they going to have progression, regression? And so to start, a lot of the hosts and a lot of analysts that I've seen have kind of slotted the Big Ten to kind of finish out in the East, with Ohio State finishing 1, Michigan State finishing 2, and Michigan finishing 3. Why do you think a lot of analysts have Ohio State atop the Big Ten East this year?
Well, I can tell you why our two analysts picked them to win it. Jerry DiNardo and Howard Griffith and I went on our annual bus tour. We go watch all 14 teams practice, and so we got a chance to see them up close, and I think they were just blown away by how physically good Ohio State is. And ultimately, I think every time we go and see them, that's the first thing that sticks out there, John. Urban Meyer's done such an incredible job of recruiting. He, year in and year out, battles with Nick Saban to have the best recruiting classes in the country, and it's reflected on the field. So I think just kind of the physical prowess of the team is what blows you away when you see them in person. That being said, they're extremely young. I mean, really, really young. They have to go on the road to Michigan State. They have to go to Wisconsin and Penn State as well. And, of course, the early season test at Oklahoma, which won't necessarily impact the Big Ten standings, but will give us a good indication of where this team stands. So I don't think by any stretch. I mean, look, to me, I would say after seeing all three of those teams, it's virtually impossible to separate Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State. There are different areas where one team is stronger than the other. But I think anyone who watched all three of them practice would tell you they have no idea how this is going to come out. And of course, last year, other than the Ohio State-Michigan game, all the games were closely contested between those three schools. So I think it'll be similar this year with the exception of I don't think we'll have a blowout in any of the games.
Now, a lot of talk regarding the University of Michigan, whether Jim Harbaugh is going to take this team to new heights in his second year now, and also a lot of people are looking at, well, who's going to be the quarterback? Is Jabril Peppers going to take over more of a leadership role? But to start, we're talking about the University of Michigan. How do you sit today viewing Jim Harbaugh with everything that you've heard in the media, what you've seen with his Twitter account, his antics and things like that? How are you viewing Jim Harbaugh today?
Well, I just think what Jim Harbaugh is trying to do, John, is draw attention to himself and the Michigan program. And I get it. The Michigan program, as great as it has been historically, and we're talking about the winningest program in the history of college football, it's an 11-year drought since they even won a Big Ten championship. And I think when we talk about the elite teams in college football in the last decade or so, it was rare that Michigan would come into the conversation. They would occasionally, and they've had a few moments here and there. But by and large, they had become, I think an afterthought's a strong word, but they had become a notch. They were a notch below those really elite programs. And Jim Harbaugh's trying to bring them back. And one of the ways that you bring your program back is through recruiting. And it's probably the quickest and smartest way to do it. I mean, you could try to win by out-scheming people. There are lots of different ways to go about it, but ultimately the easiest way to do it is just to get better players than everyone else has. And so that's what he's trying to do. I get it. I get the emphasis on recruiting. I get the tweets. I get the quotes that maybe draw attention to himself. I understand where he's coming from because I've seen it up close and going and watching them over the last decade. They just haven't been as good, frankly, as Ohio State and Michigan State have been on a year-to-year basis, and his job is to rectify that.
And looking at the Michigan football team and really looking at what their strengths are, what do you view to be the strengths of the University of Michigan football team this year?
Well, I think on defense, the defensive line is really good. I mean, great depth and talent and experience, and then the guys who are inexperienced are really impressive. I mean, Rashawn Gary was great when we were there. You can understand why he was ranked the top freshman in the country. But you look at Taco Charlton and Chris Wormley and Brian Monet and Maurice Hurst and Ryan Glasgow, you kind of go on and on. That's just a really good defensive line. So to me, that's a huge strength. The offensive line's gotten better and better, and that was an area where they were incredibly deficient. I thought, particularly under Rich Rodriguez, he recruited a different type of offensive lineman, kind of slimmer and guys who were more athletic to fit more into their system. And then Brady Hoke tried to rebuild it, and for whatever reason, though he recruited well, he wasn't really able to ever put it together. This looks like a much better offensive line. It was a really good group when we were there. So I think those are the two areas where they're strongest, and that's, as you know, John, I mean, that's where you want to build the team. But the wide receiver group is really good and really experienced. They're outstanding in the secondary, led by Jordan Lewis, who might be the best corner in the nation. So they have a lot of areas where I think you have to feel really good.
Who do you think is the biggest key player on the defense? Do you think it has to be Jabril Peppers? A lot of people are questioning, well, is this athlete really suited to play, in the secondary? Because a lot of people are viewing him really as a linebacker.
Well, they're kind of nominally calling him a linebacker this year. The new defensive coordinator, Don Brown, is known for dialing up blitzes from all kinds of crazy angles. And I think you'll see Jabril Peppers move around quite a bit. Now, that being said, he didn't practice the day we were there, and no explanation was given. My sense was it might have something to do with they didn't necessarily want our cameras catching all the different ways that he may be deployed. I mean, I think you're going to see Jabril Peppers all over the back seven on defense, and I think you'll see him with the ball in his hands some on offense and in the return game because you'd be foolish not to put the ball in his hands given how dynamic he is.
A lot of people are questioning Jim Harbaugh and not getting a lot of answers as of yet as to who's going to be the starter. A lot of people are looking at Wilton Spate being the starting quarterback, but a little bit of whispers maybe that O'Korn has done some things. prior to the season starting. How important is the starting quarterback with Michigan this year, knowing what Jim Harbaugh did last year with Jake Rudock?
Well, on one level, I mean, quarterback's the most important position on any football team. So I don't want to de-emphasize the importance of the quarterback, but I would say having a really good quarterback in Michigan's system isn't as important as having a really good quarterback in, say, Ohio State's system or in Indiana's system or in these spread offenses where the quarterback makes a lot more decisions at the line of scrimmage, where they may be asked to run with the ball more. This isn't as quarterback dependent in offense as some others are in college football, some of the more spread attacks. I think they need to have a good quarterback. I don't think they need to have a great one. I think they have two good options from what we saw from Spate and O'Korn. Both were good, not great, the day we were there. Jim Harbaugh has an incredible track record with quarterbacks, so I have no reason to believe they won't be good enough at that position.
Okay, turning our attention to Michigan State, we have on the phone with us Dave Revsine from the Big Ten Network, kind enough to give us a few minutes here on the Detroit Sports Podcast. Now, in looking at Michigan State, a lot of people, a lot of analysts, Adam and I have kind of used the word transitional year to describe the season that Michigan State's going to have. When you lose 3/5 of your offensive line, when you lose a quarterback with the caliber of Connor Cook, a lot of people are not picking them to finish atop the Big Ten East. How are you viewing Michigan State ahead of the start of the 2016 season?
Interesting, because I think I went to camp with the same thought, John, that this would be a year where they maybe step back a little bit, simply just because of exactly what you talked about. Just you're bound to take a step back when you lose your all-time passage yardage leader in Connor Cook, when you lose the Big Ten receiver of the year, or the Big Ten leader in receptions and receiving yards in Aaron Burbridge, when you lose, as you said, not just three guys in the offensive line, but two guys who were All-Americans, and Jack Conklin and Jack Allen. We can go on down the list, and that doesn't even get us to the defense with Shalik Calhoun and Lawrence Thomas and Joel Heath. So they lost a ton. I mean, I think we've kind of established that, and my belief was they wouldn't be able to make up for it right away. After seeing them, I'm not so sure. Their recruiting has hit a different level here over the last couple of years. The success that they have had has led to them getting more four-star type guys who maybe don't need as much time to develop as some of the other players. This had been a developmental program for years, and I don't say that pejoratively. I just say that that was their recipe for winning, was maybe it would take a few years to develop guys. So I think they could be in really good shape. I was surprised at how good I thought they were, and then the schedule's really conducive. I mean, they get Michigan and Ohio State at home. Now, you don't want to overstate those home games because, look, Michigan State, without its starting quarterback, went into Columbus last year and beat the Buckeyes. So I'm not saying just the sheer nature of having those games at home means they're going to win them, but it is an advantage. And so you put all that together, the talent that was at a better level than I thought it might be, the fact the schedule works well for them, and the fact that they do return several key cogs on this team, including basically everyone at the running back spot, I think they could be better than people think, and maybe better than I thought when I headed out there.
Okay, Dave, we'll get you out of here on this. Just talking about college football in general. A lot of people are looking at potentially that college football is leaning towards more of a super conference feel where you're going to have 4 16-team divisions battling it out to really determine who is number one. Is that how you're viewing it? And do you agree that that's what should take place? Should there be 4 16-team mega conferences and they battle it out to determine the true national champion?
Do I think that should happen? I think that just kind of depends on the incentives that are buried in realignment. So that will happen if conferences are incentivized to do it. I mean, I look at the schools the Big 12 is considering adding, and I don't really think any of those schools particularly move the needle. So a conference would have to go away. I mean, who would go away in that scenario? I don't know. So that would be part of it. And then you'd have to be better off with 16 than you are with 12 or 14 or 10 or whatever your number is, depending on the current conference. So I don't think really it's a matter of sitting back and saying this is the way that it should be. I think it's more what are the economics of it and what makes sense for each individual conference in terms of what's the right number for them.
Okay, as opposed to the BCS, are you currently more satisfied or less satisfied with the early editions of the college football playoff?
Yeah, it's interesting, John. I was not a huge college football playoff guy, but I definitely think it's better. So I was wrong on that. The BCS didn't really bother me. It didn't bother me in the way that it bothered other people who were outspoken against it. I didn't think it was an ideal system, but I thought that more often than not, it got us what we wanted, which was a fairly legitimate 1 versus 2 game. That being said, I've had a chance to attend 3 of the college football playoff games now, the 2 involving Ohio State 2 years ago and the one involving Michigan State last year, and it's been great. I mean, it's been everything that you could hope it would be. They've been college crowds. They maintain that atmosphere. I think I worried it would become more like the Super Bowl and be more corporate. That hasn't been the case, and I think it's been really entertaining. So I like it. I'm not necessarily in favor of expanding it anytime soon. I'd love to see us just let it play out for a while here and enjoy what we've got, but I do think it's a better system.
Dave Revsine, kind enough to give us a few minutes. You can follow him on Twitter at BTN Dave Revsine. And for all the news and notes and happenings, go check out his website, DaveRevsine.com. Thank you so much for the time on the Detroit Sports Podcast. We look forward to chatting down the line, maybe ahead of the college football playoff. Get your insights regarding the college football season. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, John. Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Man, cuz that was awesome. Dave Revsine, he recently tweeted out that Big Ten Network celebrating their 9th anniversary. So all I did was, I knew that we were prepping to talk about football, college football. I went to the Big Ten website. I'm like, I think I want to talk to Dave Revsine. He's got a lot of great insight talking about Michigan. A lot of people are kind of concerned regarding the quarterback situation. A lot of the analysts have Michigan finishing 3rd in the Big Ten East. You agree with that?
Absolutely not. Very similar to Michigan State. I think they're going to have double-digit wins. There's a possibility for double-digit wins. I actually think that they're going to end up finishing 2nd to Ohio State. Again, I just don't think Jim Harbaugh has enough yet to sit there and take down Uncle Urban down there in Buckeye country. But don't be surprised if Michigan sits there and gives Ohio State everything it can handle when they meet up for their last game of the season. And don't be surprised if Michigan next year wins the Big Ten and is playing for a national championship.
Oh, look at you putting on those maize and blue goggles. You're really starting to think Michigan can overcome Ohio State and Michigan State that quickly? I think it might take a class.
Here's the
not
thing.
In the first 4 years. I think they might get there, but if you're thinking it's going to get there within 2-3 years, I don't know, man. Michigan State and Ohio State have a really big lead on you.
Look, going into last season, I didn't think it was possible. You had a first-year coach coming in, and Michigan was in the doldrums. Nobody believed that there was any talent on this team that Brady Hoke had set up. And look at what Jim Harbaugh did. He was able to coach them to 10 wins. Possibly could have been 11 if they didn't blow the Michigan State game. Fast forwarding, you give everybody on this team another year in the program, another year in the system. Harbaugh gets some of his recruits in, and you just kind of start to filter some of that talent in and mix it with some of what was there. Obviously, Brady Hoke could recruit. It's pretty obvious if Jim Harbaugh was able to take a team that was winning 4, 5, 6 games and turn them into a 10-win season, So Hoke could recruit. He just didn't do a very good job of coaching on the field and putting the players in spots to make plays. Jim Harbaugh is a totally different animal. He's relentless in everything he does. I think within end of this year, maybe next year, they're competing for the Big Ten championship and a national championship. I see it, dude. I do. Maybe it's my my maize and blue goggles. I don't know. But I just think, look, he's doing a lot of good things over there in Ann Arbor. And I'm not saying Michigan State should be scared, because you shouldn't be. You basically have handled us for the last, decade almost? Ohio State the same way. Handled us for the last decade. But Michigan's coming. Just know Michigan's coming, and I think it might be a little bit sooner than everybody expects.
All right, stay with us. Last time out, we'll come back, finish the podcast talking about the Detroit Tigers. Lots of interesting news this week. Jacoby Jones has kind of stirred the pot a little bit, gotten people really excited based upon his debut. Stay with us. Tigers Talk to finish the podcast. Doc and Jock, episode 160, DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
Woo, 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 you know it.
I'm a Wolverine. I'm a Wolverine.
I like to sing with the radio. I like to play it real loud. I like to drive with the top down, rolling like thunder, always drawing a crowd.
I'm a Wolverine.
All right, rolling right along, episode 160. What an epic podcast. Rico Beard, Dave Revsine from the Big Ten Network joined the podcast talking some college football. I definitely got my fix of football on this episode. My goodness, I can't wait. Right around the corner, September 1st. Here it is now, downloading the podcast. First day of September. That means football, baby. You know it. I can't wait. But also, exciting times for the Detroit Tigers. They're playing teams that they should be able to take advantage of, and it's great when you can beat teams like Minnesota and the White Sox. We need to get them more on the schedule. You're in a situation where you won the series versus the White Sox. As of this recording now, we're sitting back enjoying Chris Sale in the first inning. Good stuff there. Hopefully they can wrap up the series and get the sweep, because now you got a weekend series versus the Kansas City Royals. But it's nice when you have, in a long season, some stories that you can talk about in a positive nature, and one that you didn't think was going to be so exciting and so interesting is the call-up of Jacoby Jones, a young cat in the organization, I think top 5 prospect, and he makes his debut because Cameron Maybin got hurt. Well, okay, some of the other guys like McGee had 1 RBI his entire stint with the Tigers, and then you go, my goodness, his first game, Jacoby Jones gets a couple hits, has already more RBIs this season than McGee does with the Tigers. And you just have an all-around good story where you have his parents struggling once they got the news that he was going to be called up to get to Detroit, and then he gets his hits, and you got, that natural human element to the situation where he's all excited, and you pan to his parents, and they're all clapping, all giddy. And what do you think the first couple tweets that came to us after he got his hits when they showed his parents were?
It had to have been something about his mom.
No doubt about it. It got to the point, cuz, where I've never done it before, but it so flooded my feed that at Detroit Podcast that I just said, hey, okay, guys, I got it. We all want to see his mom jumping up and down a little bit more, and I got it. I laughed, but when it got to 30, 40, 50 different kind of messages, I was like, okay, guys, I got the message. Thank you for the laughs, because they were funny. I didn't air any of them. Not any of them were even airable, likable. I couldn't even retweet any of them. But it was funny. I will laugh because.
Do you want to discuss any of them on the show right now?
All I know is that some people enhanced her picture already, and they just kept saying. Most people were like, "Wow, Jacoby Jones' mom's hot. Show her more." That was the gist of it. But some people, a lot of people like Photoshop, man, and so they kind of enhanced some of her features to make it obvious as to what she's working with. So
I gotcha.
Yeah, so
picking up what you're putting down right there.
Yeah, so Jacoby Jones' mom, very interesting. A lot of you out there want to see more of her, but thank you. I got the message, and keep sending it. But when you send it to that degree, I got the message, and thank you very much. So I don't want to limit anyone from messaging us at Detroit Podcast. It just made it so funny. So that was the first time I ever said, hey, I got the message. You like Jacoby Jones' mom. Thumbs up, Detroit. We know that.
So Jacoby Jones comes up, replaces Cameron Maybin, essentially. It's what we're saying here. Play a little bit of a different position. Jacoby Jones can play third base. He can play shortstop. He can play different positions in the outfield. You'll see he's kind of a multifaceted utility player. Will he be a spark plug like Cameron Maybin was? Because Cameron Maybin, absolute animal. It's a totally different team when he's on the field as opposed to when he's not. This team, seriously, they sit there and they win a whole lot more when he's there than when he's not there. So is Jacoby Jones going to be able to provide anything like that? Because when Cameron Maybin's not healthy, the Tigers are 25-35. When he is healthy, they're 45-26. Actually, they're 26-35. I'm sorry. When he's not on the field, and when he is on the field, they're 45-26. I mean, that's a massive difference. That's huge. So this guy is the spark plug for this team. He does help them win games. He might be their MVP. Will Jacoby Jones sit there and slot in and fill a role like that? Will he help this team to win games? I mean, at this point, he's already 1-0. So does he continue this while Maybin rehabs?
Well, the first thing you got to look at is that September call-ups are upon us, so the rosters expand, and so do you really think that he's going to play that much more? Because we're looking at when's the timetable for Nick Castellanos to return? Maybe they call back up McGee. You never know, but if he continues to hit, all his job is to do, Jacoby Jones' job is to make it absolutely difficult for Brad Ausmus and the organization to take him out. What you see, he's got a lot of intangibles. A 6'5" dude who's stacked, muscular, speed on the bases. When you look at his frame, you go, oh my goodness, that's a guy who's an athlete who can also, you would think if he hits the weight room, he could fill out even a little bit more without, if you do it correctly, if you keep that speed and you gain some muscle, Now you got a guy maybe that's a power hitter and can do some things with that athleticism, can play third base, can play in the outfield. Hey, as long as he can keep his behavior in check, not get into any kind of problems, and you keep hitting, you got to earn your spot, and maybe you can earn an outfield spot with this team because you're not going to be in third base, that much longer if Nick C comes back. And
you see why, though, Dave Dombrowski was so high on him and wanted him when they made that Joakim Soria trade.
Yeah.
He was the guy that he had to have. And you kind of see it, like you said, big guy, strong, fast. He's a multi-tool player, and he can play a multitude of positions, whether it be on the infield or the outfield. You're right. He's not going to be a long-time cure at third base because Nick C is going to come back, hopefully healthier than he was before. And when Nick C does come back, you're going to have to move, Jacoby Jones somewhere, probably into the outfield. Maybe you can sit there and rest a guy like Justin Upton here and there, maybe play a little left field, maybe a little right field, and give some guys some days off here. But again, you see what Dave Dombrowski and what the Tigers organization really liked with this kid, and you see why they kind of put up with a lot of the different things that went on in the offseason with him, and they kind of dealt with his baggage because he can do a number of things that really help this team. And you're right, one game, more RBIs than McGee did in 22 games, so that's a big bonus, that's a big plus.
It's a good story. I mean, it's nice to see, and when you have a team that's in the chase, sometimes some special stories emerge. Maybe, just maybe, him, Fulmer, Boyd, if he gets back up, the young cats, Daniel Norris, can do some things to actually take this team over. I don't think it's going to result in ultimate success, but hey, if you're gonna go down with the ship, ride it out with the young cats. And if the veterans aren't going to perform, if they're going to be too inconsistent up and down, let's see what these young cats can do. It's a good story, and right now, hey, all you got to do, win series, and you have to hope that Cleveland comes back to the pack a little bit. You're not totally out of it as September starts, but basically, it's go time. Put your pedal to the metal, win games, you got to win series, you got to do some damage, and you have to win the majority of the games versus Cleveland. You got to continue to have other guys besides Jared Saltalamacchia be clutch. Justin Upton has kind of emerged. He's been clutch as usual. But again, you have to remember, this is only a small sample size. And as you like to say, this is a correction. But you got to remember, is he going to correct back to the guy that we saw the majority of the year? Or is he going to be a guy that's going to light it up like Jared Saltalamacchia? So it's going to be interesting to see. A lot of question marks still. But hey, that's why we watch. That's why we're watching right now in the studio. The Tigers are an interesting team. And basically, you know what it is? I kind of, at first, thought I was annoyed by this team, but it's kind of an interesting team to watch because you really, night to night, never know what you're going to get. Good Verlander, bad Verlander. Good Fulmer, bad Fulmer. Good offense, bad offense. Good bullpen performance, bad bullpen performance. You really can't speculate what the hell they're going to do, so what do naturally? You watch the train wreck and let's see what happens.
A little bit earlier, you brought up the young kids. You brought up guys like Michael Fulmer, Daniel Norris, Matt Boyd, now Jacoby Jones. Do you think the youth on this team is capable of carrying them on a playoff run? Because at this point, they've carried them pretty much all season. We've talked about it numerous times at length that they need Michael Fulmer to sit there and get into the playoffs. So you're now leaning on a guy like Daniel Norris, Matt Boyd, who has, since the All-Star break, outshined Michael Fulmer. Michael Fulmer does have that complete game, but Matt Boyd's been an absolute stud. A guy like Shane Green, who's really added some stability in that bullpen. Do you think these young kids can sit there and help prolong their season and get them maybe to play for a World Series? Because at this point, they have to. They need them. They need them to sit there and keep performing. And I think that they've got enough of the right stuff and enough of the right mix to sit there where if they can sit there and lock onto a wild card or maybe even chip away, and overtake Cleveland come the end of the season. I mean, there's only about a month left that they can do it. You can never have too much pitching in baseball. And basically everybody we've just named, they're all pitchers. And they're all studs. Absolute studs. So I think you've got kind of the right mix, whether it be a rotational arm or a bullpen arm that can sit there and carry this team to the finish line.
Listen, the guy that I'm most looking forward to seeing hopefully emerge is Michael Fulmer. We need to get him back on track. Him, Verlander, if Zimmerman can come back by the end of the year and be that guy, this could be perfect timing if you get Nick C back, if you get Zimmerman back, Maben, I guess, has been listed as day-to-day, but you really, the focal point is going to be Fulmer. But Daniel Norris has done well, like you've said. Boyd has been a guy that's kind of emerged. And so this year, it's naturally okay to be a little bit pessimistic and to be a little bit skeptical that all these young cats are going to all emerge and play well. But, hey, if you're going to have a magical season, you basically would need all of them. Jacoby Jones, Fulmer, Boyd, Norris, 4 guys. If they all stepped up and took this team over, that would be awesome. That would be great. But do I see it happening? Naturally, no. It's just, you have proven Major League talent all across Major League Baseball, and they're just a little bit better than the Tigers.
I don't know. I think you're getting enough, maybe not in large quantities, but you're getting enough day in, day out where these guys sit there and they help you win. I mean, Daniel Norris will sit there and he'll give you 5 strong innings. Matt Boyd will sit there and give you 5, 6 strong innings. Michael Fulmer will sit there and give you 7, no problem. Jacoby Jones sat there, drove in 2 runs the other night that sat there and helped this team win. You needed those runs to win the game. I think you're getting just enough, and you're kind of sprinkled in throughout the lineup where it's going to sit there and make a difference down the stretch. I think they've got just enough to sit there and get into the playoffs, and then they're going to be a little bit dangerous, I think.
Okay. Verlander's doing his thing. Strikeout first inning. Good stuff there, Justin Verlander. They definitely need to sweep the White Sox, have a good series versus the Royals. But cuz it's tough, man. You look at Cleveland's schedule, you look at the KC Royals, they play a lot of their games at home the rest of the way. And so the Tigers, they have kind of an interesting schedule in the month of September, but they got to do their thing. And you got to have Brad Ausmus keep the guys in check. You can't have Victor Martinez get ejected. You can't let the umpires get in your head. You just have to, when you face good competition, really find consistency in that offense. And it just sucks that, if Cameron Maybin gets hurt, fine, we get it. He's been dealing with injuries all year. But to get hurt on a play where you don't have to slide, ball 4, you just kind of jog over to second base, you dive, and you get yourself hurt. The team can't afford that. The team can't afford where a leader in a weekend game, in a weekend series, when you have one of the guys you're counting on, Fulmer pitching, get ejected. And then you have J.D. Martinez get ejected. And then you have the manager and the hitting coach get ejected. Listen, the umpires suck. Everybody knows it. Keep your cool. Be professional. And do what you got to do to advance and get to the postseason. So, I'm just hoping that we can continue when we talk next week about the Tigers, that they've had a good series versus Kansas City. It's going to be tough. So that's why, so similar to last week, you need a sweep this week versus the White Sox. Then maybe you can afford to lose 2 of 3 on the road to the Kansas City Royals, man. But we'll see what happens.
Dude, you just got to win series at this point. That's really what it comes down to. You don't want to lose any more series to anybody, especially divisional rivals. Kansas City's on your heels. You're on the Indians' heels. Those games against the Indians coming down the stretch, those are going to be monumentally important. I'm glad that the Tigers have had Minnesota's number. As long as you can take care of the teams in your division, I think you're going to be all right. You just got to sit there, and when you look at it as a whole, you just got to win 2 out of 3 every single time you sit there and you face off against a new opponent.
Yes, sir. Great podcast, cuz. Thank you to our guest, Dave Revsine. Thank you to our guest, Rico Beard. Great podcast. Love the fact that we're getting a lot of engagement from our guests.
Absolutely, man. Jam-packed show, ton of great information from guys who are in the know, have the knowledge, and just want to come on and talk sports with us. We appreciate it.
Hey, and shout out to listener Jimmy Freeman. I know you gave him props. We'll give him props here. I know he listens. He likes our stuff. He likes our Twitter page, and I know he's listening to the podcast. Shout out, Jimmy. Thank you so much for listening. I know you're doing big things over there at the station in Albion, so good luck.
It's a good dude, man. It's a good dude right there.
Brings, what you like is guys that just give you their opinion, and hey, I'm always favorable to guys that say, hey, you guys are doing good stuff, but hey, show a little love to Doc. My goodness. I know that you love Adam, but geez, share a little bit of that love.
I am the talent on this show.
Very much so.
No. All jokes, kidding aside.
Yes, sir. Just like Kevin Owens, this is a new era, and if you're looking for an alternative to Detroit Sports Talk, look at, peek at, download the Detroit Sports Podcast. Yes, sir.
Go Tigers. I'm a Wolverine, man.
Oh. Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.